dear chairlady, dear colleagues. It is really a great honor for me and also for my colleagues who have participated in this project initiated by the Hungarian Academy of Sciences that I can present here some of its aspects and in an intermittent way, since it is not exactly the topics of your seminar, but I still try to get contact to the main question already raised in the introductory remarks. So let me start and tell me if you are interested, but you cannot read something, because I will make jumps since the material is much more voluminous than the time I have. So let me start with our legacy, which is a very Hungarian legacy, and whatever modernization comes, you should respect the legacy, and you should somehow build on it. It should be different in other countries. So Roland Eötvös is a world-famous physicist because of his experimental achievements in gravitation at the end of the 19th century. Only in Hungary we are conscious that how influential he was in forming, in shaping Hungarian schooling system. And here you can read some of his propositions, which he started to make very early. At age 26 already, he suggested to found a teacher training college following the example of the École Normale Supérieure, which later on, with end of fights of 20 years, he could also realize. But he is the founding father of the Mathematical and Physical Society, which started mainly or essentially as a society of mathematics and physics teachers. Separate journal was launched already at that time for high school students, for nurturing talents. So I believe that the pupils of Eötvös, the young and the elder Eötvös, and there is the father, the portrait of the father of Eötvös, who was a minister of culture and education. So his commitment has a family root. So the pupils of Eötvös were really dominating the Hungarian education customs till the mid-20th centuries, at least for 100 years. So Eötvös had very strong views. He said that what is important is the teacher, not the schooling system. The schooling system is something on the second plan, but the teacher's personality, and teachers, in case of teachers, he was favoring scientific preparedness, the knowledge of the discipline. He wrote as an entrance address when the first issue of this mathematical physical journal has appeared that we want to present the latest results of the world science pedagogically, that every teacher could follow and make use of it in the teaching procedure. In his inaugural speech, rector's speech at the Budapest University, he expressly told that we have to train teachers to scientists. I won't continue, maybe you will read it when I leave here the slides. So I just want to give you one example of an outstanding teacher coming and following the Eötvös school. His name is László Rácz. László Rácz Prize is the highest valued teacher's recognition which teachers of science, biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics can receive in Hungary for their whole lifelong pedagogical László Rácz was a math teacher, a headmaster of one high-level secondary school in Budapest, editor of the high school mathematical and physics journal devoted to talent nurturing, but he is memorable in the Hungarian public, very widely in the Hungarian public, by discovering and mentoring two very famous persons who have their name in the history of science, namely Eugene, Jenő in Hungarian, Wigner, and John von Neumann, János Neumann. I did not give next in parentheses the achievement of Wigner in nuclear physics, neither the beautiful theorems in functional analysis by Neumann, but something which came out from their oeuvre, from their activity, often quoted by the community even today. Wigner often called to be the first nuclear engineer. And the von Neumann architecture of computers was until recently the exclusive way of building the computers. So my first intermittent message to this audience is that we have to teach our students, the teachers have to have nice examples that actually the scientists have an exclusive chance. They might found new industries which do not exist before they started. They grew out from fundamental activities, from fundamental achievements. Unfortunately, Eötvös original concept about teacher science is not sustainable. The complexity of the scientific of the science itself puts an obstacle to satisfy the wish of Eötvös to present the latest results of the world science pedagogically, what every teacher could follow. It's impossible more. At the end, and towards the end of the last century, actually academicians, high-level scientists made a big effort, put a big effort to pack into the curriculum of different science subjects the whole new achievements of the 20th century on the top of the story started with Galilei and Newton and so on. And it became a complete disaster. It was undigestible. Everyone, teachers, students became really frustrated. And this was a reason the teachers in Hungary, at least, could resist very successfully against these reforms. And this led somehow turning away from science. At least this is my personal experience. I was already a young assistant at that time. I could witness the efforts of my professors in this sense, which resulted really in a horrible dispute and some sort of conflicts. And turning away from science leads, unfortunately, to pseudoscience. And the edge between science and pseudoscience is something very, very sensitive thing. This is my intermittent second message to you, that you should be very careful when you try to attract the interest of your students by presenting the latest results in a colorful, schematic, nice way. These two pictures come from the official website of James Webb Space Telescope. But you should not teach it except if you teach also how they are synthesized. Such pictures were never made by James Webb Telescope, because James Webb Telescope, as probably many of you knows, observes the universe in infrared, not visible for our eyes. There is a sort of transformation, and one should be honest. And in this sense, I am very strict and following the statement of Eötvös, back again, that you should not transform physics teachers or science teachers into magicians. So, what we should do? We should try to go over to a much more contemporary approach of understanding science teaching. And since I am not an expert in educational sciences, I quote a Nobel Prize winner in physics who clearly recognized that understanding the success and failure of teaching and learning physics, or in general science, is similarly complicated, requires many transmissions, many steps of mediations, as it was the case of quantum physics. There are no direct ways to touch the electron. There is no direct ways to understand how a student is thinking about the physics exercise he has to solve in the afternoon. So one has, as this quotation from Wyman tells us, we have really to start to study similar to as we did in case of the atomic structures, collect data about how people learn, how students do or don't learn various topics. And this is equally difficult, equally complicated. It is a scientific activity of equal value as the atomic physics or any other direction of scientific research. I also quote here, put here a Hungarian educational scientist who emphasized the importance of pedagogical experiments conducted along the same principle of scientific thinking, but also added that it should be under the control of the teachers' community. You should cooperate very strongly with the teachers if you wish to get somewhere. And this is the way we started, following this guidance, which I just tried to quote fragmentary in the previous two slides. This was in our mind when we launched the content pedagogy research program of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in 2016. The key directions, I would not list all of them, but just I call your attention to the second row about the renewal of Hungarian teaching traditions. So we should not negate the Eötvös legacy. We should find out how we can build it into the new approach. And in red, I put which is my favorite point, that we accepted applications only if there was a substantial participation, not just one or two teachers, but there was a substantial participation of practicing teachers. And in the required work plan, which we gave the main lines along which it should be composed, we were also telling that already at the very beginning of a 4-year-long activity, they should contact those educational kindergarten and primary schools and secondary schools, those educational institutions where they will test the evidences for the failure or success of their initiatives. What are the facts about? So we received quite a number of applications, and 19 of them we thought that could be supported. I have to admit, although I am not an expert, but they were real educational research experts in the jury, and they told me that no more than 3 of the teams were already conscious and with earlier activities following what internationally is thought to be a pedagogical project, pedagogical research project. But we wanted to help the development, and in this sense, we gave a sort of credit to the other groups which have held the promise of developing during these 4 years into a real educational research project and group. So from the 19, as you can read in the STEM classification, we counted 10 groups, and also, which is written in red, the number of active teachers grew during these 4 years quite constantly, and at the end it has reached 40% of the whole staff. And just following the idea, or relating to one of the 4 questions raised by the president of your educational committee, we had 70 PhD students who were working on their thesis within educational research, which holds some sort of promise for the younger generation joining this sort of research. The program was run very autonomically. So we got with this program council complete free hands to run, to manage that modest, but for Hungarian standards, quite substantial amount of budget, which the Academy of Sciences from its own budget, not something extra from the state, but from its own budget appropriated for us. And with a yearly report, we always presented a sort of progress reports to the General Assembly of the Academy of Sciences. The yearly reports of each group were evaluated by Hungarian experts. It is not in Hungary. It is not easy to find 38 experts who accept to work through the reports, but we somehow managed because there are not too many educational experts. Most of the or assessors came from disciplinary science. But we were very happy to have an international board of friendly critics. And when I prepared myself, I went through the list of these friendly critics, and I found that very spontaneously, 10 out of the 10, 3 came from Finland. And we were definitely enjoying very much. Actually, they came from very different directions. Jari Lavonen was responsible, took the responsibility working with science, but Kallio Tavin about visual culture, and Ritva Takkinen about the pedagogy of the children with special needs helped, which are well developed. So at the end, the academy expressed its recognition to the most active teachers. In the middle of the pandemic, we managed to organize a session, a celebration of those 56 active teachers who received honorary diploma from the president of the academy, which was something very, I understood that it was appreciated by the teachers very much, and it strengthens the contacts between teachers, schools, and the academy. Here you see the list of the qualitative progresses. I emphasize only the last, because this is, at least to my subjective judgment, is the most important, that a new perspective has opened for active teachers for scientific, real research collaboration with academia. But also it is important that the isolated groups, through this research council we were working with, started to self-organize themselves into a community. So what I would like as a third message, if you wish, to transmit to you, that through this personal experience of teachers in participating in a real scientific activity, which is as difficult as quantum chemistry, quantum computers, educational research, they get a sort of self-confidence, and in this way they much more authentically present science subjects to their students, because their personality is a guarantee for the scientific value of what they are teaching. There are also other channels. The Academy of Sciences tries to get closer to the schools, to the students and to the teachers. Here I just give two examples. So I would not say that our program is an exclusive, has an exclusive role. I think the Academy of Sciences makes quite a strong effort. So now I would like to shortly give you some sample results. Here about science education. Just I point to what is written in red. There were three groups, two about physics and chemistry, the other about general scientific reasoning, trying to put into the content of each of different subjects the exercises which develop, which give a general background for scientific reasoning, for developing the scientific reasoning of students. But what is important is the number of the participating active teachers. It is important the number of physics teachers who during these 4 years have obtained a PhD degree. It is the number of physics teachers who gave either oral or poster presentation. Even they led workshops at this World Conference organized by GIREP in 2019 in Budapest. There were 27 active teachers who were able to present scientific papers of different quality. I would not say that each of them belonged to the forefront of educational research, but they understood what does it mean to present a scientific result, and that gives them quite important experience. Similar thing happened in the chemistry group, where for 4 years the 32 teachers were working together and at the end taking over many of the duties which were started by the researchers themselves. For example, the worksheet designs and other important parts they could do themselves. They learned it. Here I wish a little bit stop at the technical informatics methodology. They started by just a technical development. They built a very cute interface between sensor and computer, which is very universal. You can do with it quantitative physics, chemistry, or biology measurements, and they stopped at this moment. And then 5 teachers joined them, and suddenly they worked out a complete introductory high school physics measurement series. And you see that through the website of this group, they started to advertise an in-service course, which went, I heard that here several hundred teachers went through this further education in how to use informatics. Now, just spontaneously, more than 2,000 people, teachers, started to use it, started to learn it. Even more, students visited quite frequently the website of this group, where consultation was and still is available for anyone interested. And they went and convinced their teachers, physics teachers in the middle. And they decided to learn this Arduino-based methodology together. So with your eyes, maybe you can figure out those 2 items, which really an intrinsic student project was realized after where they somehow checked what they learned. To this class, I would also classify the new initiative for writing a new style geography book, if you wish, or separate sheets, which is a new approach, problem-based complex presentation from physical geography to cultural and touristic institutions. And this new geography book, which is not an obligatory material, contains actually quite a number of QR codes. Here you see one page with my very bad quality photos, where there are, I don't know, I did not count it, how many QR codes, where students have the freedom to continue, to have a deeper knowledge, and teachers are encouraging students coming back and telling them what they would like to make as research, essentially when it is about their own living neighborhood, then they have very interesting and innovative ideas. And again, the next message is that somehow teachers should be taught to and should be socialized already at universities to be open to the initiatives of the students, to be prepared to learn together something which certainly the university curriculum could not contain because it happens after they leave university. Nobody is working together with the students, being susceptible to work together with them by their proposition might be an important tool to increase the attractiveness of science careers. No, my time is go. It's no. Written here that I have 19 minutes. I don't want to go against, but I just want still show you something which is somehow a third chapter, a third group of the results we obtained with our program. Because I want to show you something which is the way people try to renew the legacy of László Rácz, of the famous mathematics teacher. The tradition of Rácz was continued without any break in this past decades, because the very successful Hungarian team at the International Mathematics Olympiad were participating in the so-called Pósa camps. Pósa is the name of the present personification of the Rácz legacy, but this is not enough. This is not sufficient. So this group of discovery learning mathematics decided to introduce similar methods, finding out whether it can be extended, its applicability can be extended to the less gifted, to the normal students. And in a larger size letters you can read their initiative I like the most, the best, the flying school. During 3 years before the pandemic started, they visited more than 100 schools, selected exclusively in those poor regions of Hungary, where they offered an afternoon where this discovery method, discovery learning method of mathematics on very simple, very low difficulty problems were presented. And they were watching the activity of the participating students and selected those who were the most active and invited them to regional talent nurturing programs where monthly for 1 day they were getting together not too far from their village. And an interesting outcome came. We were expecting that the esteem, the academic esteem of those who are doing this sort of research will increase by making it known to the wider academic public. And as an interesting result, let me call your attention that the first department of education in the Hungarian research system was open after we finished this program in last year. Its head is a mathematics teacher, but also working at the world-famous Szerényi Mathematical Institute, which is, at least in combinatorics, is considered to be probably they say that they are the first, but let me say it, maybe among the 3 best So they now have a separate department of mathematics education, and just as a result of this activity, the head was selected as the earlier leader of this research group. Similar thing happens in completely different subjects. For example, foreign language teaching was for digital new methods of foreign language teaching was worked out by a group, but if you understand this map, you can see that it was directed to mainly Roma-populated schools with very low social status, directly next to the Romanian border. So it is not the so-called the wealthy or medium level, but really the low level of social status was chosen. And it turned out that without the teachers, they even could not talk to this student population. And the teachers, after sort of preparation, gave fantastic conference talks. They were giving valuable contribution to the teachers' background. The last one, here is a picture about how they worked. There is a third group of underprivileged. These are the children of special needs. And we had an autism in education research with the main goal to find new ways of including the high-performing autistic children into the, if you wish, mainstream classes. They initiated an intervention program. They, at the end, produced accredited teacher for their education. But what I want to emphasize here, that they very closely collaborated with organizations of the concerned parents, of the concerned part of the public. That was a guarantee, a way how to succeed. School is, in this case, not enough. Mainstream, the parents of mainstream children, and also the families who have autistic children should be included into this whole intervention program. It's a fantastic and huge task, which they just, during these 4 years, they started. So what is the lesson from these 3 groups? I believe we heard actually also that from the introductory remarks that there is a huge shortage in well-educated, in this case, informaticians, but also in other professions. And the only way is to, or at least the one very important channel where you can expand somehow the population, the educated population, if you directly try to find contact to the groups of low social status, explaining and proving that elevation of their social status goes maybe not the most, but almost the most directly through science-related professions. That in Hungary is extremely important because from the towns, including my granddaughter, children go somewhere to England or to Germany, but to increase the number of people who can do who can work in high-tech industries, we have really to achieve something with those groups which are living at the moment on the periphery of the society. Yes, I am here in Estonia. I just want to flash that we also had a group working on the modernization of the world-famous Kodály method, which probably here in the country of the course and of the conductor family, Järvi, you might also know quite well. It's interesting. It was a very colorful and important initiative, which fortunately enough continues. So my last slide is just to show you that we have now already closed calls, evaluated calls as a result of this 27 new groups started their work last year, some of them only this year, and budget was increased by the president of the Academy of Sciences, again coming exclusively from the academy's budget. This does not rely on other sources. And I just finished by telling you that now the chairman of the program council is not an amateur of these activities, a real educational research professional, Professor Benő Csapó, and I hope that you will be able to invite him at a later occasion and have a discussion with him, really using the terminology and interesting and concentrating on the interesting points of the educational research. Thank you.
So thank you. And now it's time to ask questions from Professor Patkós. And actually try to be the first one.
Pardon?
I will be the first one who will ask.
Then I have to follow
yes.
you.
yes. So thank you for a very nice overview. And based on what you are talking here, it seems that things are in Hungary going very well. And young people are really, really interested in science and science-related careers. Is that true?
No. The whole activity, first of all, you see that the program went far beyond what we understand as science. So humanistics and arts were included. But the idea was to raise the interest in school of the people, of the children, of the young generation in general. Because apparently nowadays many of them, and not the least talented, but also talented children, feel that the school is some rigid environment where they are forced to go and they don't learn too much. And what our goal was with these projects, which we tried to push towards, to make more enjoyable without losing the professional level standards. We don't want to give up the standards, but we have a different approach where we take into account more the social environment, the psychological environment, the cognitive conditions, and I think it was more useful for those who participated, for the researchers and teachers who participated. And hopefully it will somehow become more and more useful also for the children.
So thank you. Rachel?
Thank you for a very thorough and profound, review of the educational projects. And I would like to ask, do the teachers who participate in these projects or come to the activities, are they rewarded in a way? I know that the best reward is that they get better, but for them, do they get some points which can, raise their salaries or something? It's a very tricky question, but...
No, it's an important question. I have a very definite opinion about Hungarian educational policy, but I don't want to tell it. What I emphasize was that our program was allowed to work very autonomously. So therefore, no one made any counter propaganda on or sort of pressure. They did not put on pressure on the teachers. Occasionally, regionally, they could collaborate quite well with the local educational authorities, public education authorities. But I, as a coordinator, collected. In Hungary, there is a lifelong career sketch proposed for teachers. From the class 1, they can, with an exam, go into the class 2, which will increase their salary. And then there are the uppermost two directions. You can become a teacher scientist, actually they called it, but I believe it is not what I was telling about, it's something different. And you can be a master, a teacher master, and then you really have a higher salary. So what I asked the group leaders in their closing report after 4 years, to tell me about the progress on this ladder of the participating teachers. I did not bring here the numbers, but the numbers were quite positive. So the teacher, him or herself, should initiate this sort of examination. An application should be submitted. And quite a number of the participating 300-something teachers got the courage to prepare an application, and quite a number, like say 50, 70, actually were successful. So this is an indirect way, because this program was not officialized. So, but even it was not any obstacle. I did not encounter any explicit obstacle. The only trouble was that we thought that some of the groups could continue under the umbrella of the governmental development plans. And there was no reaction to that, unfortunately, yet. Yeah, okay, I don't complain, because by the continuation of the Academy of Sciences, the new president of the Academy of Sciences, most of the groups can continue, and in this way the whole initiative is not losing, I hope, its incentive force.
Any more questions? Ülle, please.
Thanks for your presentation. presentation, very interesting. And you told about the non-privileged schools and students and the need to engage them more. Can you characterize such schools and students? Why they are non-privileged? Do they have non-standard learning programs, or don't they have enough good teachers, or why? Because it's in every country. And what can be done to engage more the students from those schools?
So, underprivileged schools, first, what I was quoting, are in regions or districts where, in general, families with very low social status, very low income are living. That can happen in Budapest, in some districts of Budapest, where exclusively or almost exclusively Roma families are living. And it happens at the edges of the countries, not only in the Romanian direction, but also towards Croatia or Serbia sometimes. So there, actually, the population has no jobs. So somehow the income of the family, independently of their belonging to any minority, everybody is unemployed, or very high is the unemployment rate. And this determines somehow how regularly they send their children to the school. Those tablets which appeared on one photo, I asked the leader of the group whether you gave the students. No, we could not do that because the family would take away and sell it. So after every exercise, they asked back the tablets and again gave. So only at school they were actually working with the tablets and learning the English, but this was also still quite successful. Now about the quality of the teachers. So since there is a shortage of teachers in general, even the highest quality gymnasium, high schools are complaining about losing science teachers mainly. So you can imagine that how usually physics is taught by, I don't know, music teacher, or so definitely science in many places in these underprivileged schools are taught by teachers who have no real education in their subject. So it's an extremely difficult thing, and this was the reason why I was so happy to get into personal contact with those English teachers at the Romanian border who turned out perfect, like being able to give a perfect lecture about their method when a meeting of Hungarian educational researchers was convened, and these ladies gave a beautiful account of. They are very conscious. So in this sense, I am still optimistic, because if they have the possibility for doing really higher quality intellectual work, this challenge might induce higher quality of activity on their side. This what Eötvös called that the everyday disillusioning practice leads to some sort of disinterest. This should somehow be prevented, and very, very partially only, but our program locally could somehow counteract of this disillusionment.
So thank you, and seems that last question comes from Priit Reiska.
Yes.
We should follow the time.
Thank you very much for this very nice presentation. It seems to be a very promising way to get teachers and researchers cooperated, to get also more teachers to do research, and it might be that it also helps to solve many problems, maybe raise quality of education at schools, but also maybe also to get more students interested in scientific career. But I assume that in relation to the whole country, it was a very small amount of schools, teachers, and also researchers which were involved. Do you think that in your example, it might be worth to say the ministry that maybe it should be do the same in large scale? And what do you think, is it possible to do that? Thank you.
Okay. I agree with you 100% that we were able to work together with a really small minority of the teaching staff. It is not true in case of the researchers, because unfortunately the Hungarian community of educational research experts is very small. Actually, with our activity, we more or less, you should ask Professor Chapo, but he told me that at least we doubled those who are involved actively, which already can be seen in the publications, which I was not stressing too much because I am more interested in this practical applicability. However, it's very difficult to understand. So we not only in the socialism or so-called socialism, but also since then, we were having several reformulation of curriculum forced from above, and never could notice any real progress. So this leads me, myself, very personal, to believe that somehow there should be something, we should find a mechanism to use the teachers community, the researchers community, the headmasters, to allow people to try to experiment. And the best, I believe, of the achievements I was showing you very quickly, when after 4 years, I asked the group leader and he showed me the number of downloads. Because the downloads, if you have 2,000 downloads, that probably half of them is using really. But even 1,000 physics or informatics teachers using this Arduino-based project is already not a minority, because some 3,000 schools we have or something like that. Maybe I am wrong, but not the order of magnitude. So it's very interesting how this diffusion, like dissemination goes. Yesterday I told colleagues, no, I tell it in public. Teachers don't read educational research journals. They read those websites and which are actively maintained, where if they have a question, they can turn and they get a response. And in this case, unfortunately, the very last one, this Kodai method, Renewal, because of the pandemic, suddenly this database, this electronic database of songs and rhythmic exercises and so on, has been immensely used, not only in Hungary. 23 countries they have this Google statistic. From 23 countries, download happened. They were asked to prepare an English version, certainly with English rhymes and songs, not Hungarians. They have a Chinese PhD student whose PhD thesis will be along working on the Chinese version. For me, maybe it is very slow, but I am a little bit skeptic about making fast progress. The Kodai method, for example, until it reached its height, took several decades of work of Kodai himself. So I just hope that the international collaboration, maybe this is my last word, so the dissemination should not be restricted to Hungary. I think it is very important that these groups should try to enter the new course, the projects in the new course of the European Union, and try to get known by their foreign colleagues what they have invented, and maybe together already they can more efficiently disseminate their achievements. But you are fully right. Okay, I don't know. There is an early bird in Hungary which appears at the beginning of the spring. A single such bird, which I don't know, unfortunately, the English name, does not make spring. So we need really a large number of people attracted to the participation. But thank you very much for your apparently vivid interest.
And thank you for answering the question. And we meet with you in the afternoon in the panel. Then you can speak more.